woman who truly values herself does not need to convince anyone of her worth. She simply moves differently, and the world adjusts around her. There is something about her presence, subtle but unmistakable. Not loud, not forceful, but steady, like the rhythm of waves or the breath of an old tree. You may not even know why you feel drawn to her, yet somehow you respect her. You listen more carefully. You hesitate before crossing her boundaries. This perception of high value is not something she announces. It is something she embodies. In this talk, we are not speaking of status, wealth, or external recognition. We are pointing to something more subtle, more enduring, energetic self-respect. Modern psychology calls it self-assuredness. Neuroscience tells us it's rooted in the nervous system's regulation. But long before those terms existed, ancient wisdom taught it simply: the inner world shapes the outer reality. To become a high-value woman, you do not add, you subtract the urge to prove, the need to chase, the anxiety to be chosen. In place of those, you introduce stillness, conscious habits, and a grounded presence that cannot be faked. You do not perform worth. You practice it, silently, consistently, until it becomes the only language your body speaks. Let us now explore the 12 microhabits that cultivate this rare and radiant energy, so that you are not just perceived as high value, but you feel it in your bones without having to say a word. Welcome to self-mastery, your space for real wisdom and inner growth. Subscribe and remember our name, self-mastery, because others may copy the voice, but the truth lives here. There is a quiet power that flows from a woman who is deeply anchored in herself. Not the kind of power that shouts or demands recognition, but the kind that is felt in the silence between her words, in the way she enters a room without needing to be seen, and yet cannot be ignored. This type of presence, this magnetic energy, is not born from effort or appearance. It is born from inner stillness. In a world that celebrates noise, speed, and constant visibility, stillness becomes a revolutionary act. It signals emotional maturity. It communicates to others, without a single word, that she is not searching outside for what she has already cultivated within. A woman rooted in stillness becomes untouchable by drama, unshaken by rejection, and uninterested in the superficial affirmations that others so desperately chase. Stillness is not silence, it is a presence. A woman who embodies this does not respond immediately to provocation. She breathes first, she observes, she listens to the tension in her body, the thoughts rising in her mind, and then she chooses her response. This single breath, the pause before the reaction, is where her power resides. It is this pause that transforms conflict into clarity and emotion into intelligence. There was once an older woman in a small village who people would often come to for guidance. She was not educated in the traditional sense. She didn't wear expensive clothing or carry a commanding tone, but her presence, calm, composed, deeply aware, was enough to quiet the noise of anyone who entered her home. One day, a young woman came to her in tears. Her relationship had ended. She had been ghosted without explanation. The pain, the confusion, the need to understand why, it consumed her. "I don't understand," the young woman cried. "How could someone just disappear after everything we shared?" The elder woman poured her a cup of tea and remained silent. She let the silence speak, and after some time, she finally said, "When a person disappears without explanation, they are not rejecting you. They are revealing their capacity for depth. Let their absence be their answer." That one sentence, spoken with grounded stillness, calmed the storm within the younger woman. She didn't need more information. She needed clarity. And the clarity came not through argument or validation, but through presence. This is the essence of inner stillness. It doesn't just serve the self. It becomes a mirror for others, showing them their own chaos or peace. Stillness can be practiced, and it must be, because the world will constantly pull you toward reaction. One microhabit that nurtures this quality is the art of pausing before you speak. Whether you're being asked a question, confronted with criticism, or offered affection, pause. This does not mean being distant or cold. It means you are not rushed. You are not being led by anxiety. You are choosing presence over performance. Another powerful practice is a silence ritual each morning. Before reaching for your phone or checking messages, sit in quiet for 5 minutes. Just 5. Let your mind settle. Let your breath deepen. Let the external world wait. In that silence, you are reminding yourself that you set the tone for your day, not circumstances, not others, you. This habit rewires your nervous system over time. Neuroscience shows us that when we build rituals of stillness, we strengthen the prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational thought, decision-making, and empathy. At the same time, we calm the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fear and impulsive reactions. So what appears to be a simple morning habit is, in fact, a reconfiguration of your internal operating system. You become less reactive, more composed, and infinitely more attractive, not because of what you say, but because of how you exist. People often talk about confidence, but true confidence is not loud. It does not need affirmation. It is not defended or performed. It is a quiet certainty in one's value. And this certainty becomes magnetic. People feel safer in the presence of a woman who is not ruled by her emotions. They admire her without knowing why. Her silence is not empty. It is full of discernment, self-awareness, and unspoken strength. Now consider emotional boundaries. Often misunderstood. Emotional boundaries are not walls that separate you from others. They are the respectful distances that invite healthier connection. A woman with clear emotional boundaries does not need to explain them repeatedly. They are communicated through how she responds to disrespect, how she preserves her peace, and how she exits conversations that dishonor her values. Imagine a woman who consistently allows her partner to speak harshly to her when he's upset. She justifies it, saying, "He's stressed, he didn't mean it, and perhaps he didn't." But what she is teaching him, over time, is that her emotional space is open for invasion, that her self-worth is negotiable, that disrespect can be overlooked if emotions are high. Now imagine another woman. In a similar situation, she gently interrupts and says, "I'll listen when you're ready to speak to me with respect." And then she steps away. No anger, no drama, just a calm, clear signal this space is sacred. This is not coldness. This is clarity. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about controlling what you allow into your emotional field. And this type of control is not rigid. It is graceful. It flows from self-respect, not fear. There is a reason why psychology emphasizes the importance of emotional regulation in healthy relationships. When a person reacts impulsively, they are projecting their unresolved pain onto others. When they respond with awareness, they are integrating that pain, choosing healing over harm. Boundaries give us this power to pause, to process, and then to decide. One microhabit that builds strong boundaries is practicing emotional naming. Before expressing anger or frustration, take a moment to name what you're truly feeling. I feel unheard. I feel dismissed. I feel disrespected. Naming the emotion softens the reaction and gives you a choice. Do I need to speak this aloud? Do I need to step away? Or do I simply need to acknowledge this within myself and let it pass? This habit, though small, changes the entire emotional climate of your relationships. Instead of attacking, you are articulating. Instead of escalating, you are elevating. Over time, you stop attracting people who feed on emotional chaos, and you begin to draw in those who meet you in your stillness. There's a story of a woman in her 50s who had recently started dating again after a long marriage. She was intelligent, graceful, and deeply nurturing. But in her relationships, she found herself being overrun by emotionally immature men, those who would test her boundaries, drain her energy, and leave her confused. One day, after yet another disappointing experience, she decided to change. Not her appearance, not her tone, but her boundaries. She began to speak less when she felt anxious. She started leaving conversations that turned manipulative. She wrote down her non-negotiables, and she began to honor them, not when it was easy, but especially when it was difficult. Months later, she noticed a shift. Men who were drawn to drama stopped calling. Friends who constantly dumped their emotional burdens on her drifted away. In their place came quiet, respectful interactions. People started asking her advice. Her daughter told her, "You've changed. You seem untouchable." But the truth was, she had become reachable only by those who respected her energy. And that is what true boundaries do. They filter the noise, protect the signal, and honor the soul. Another powerful microhabit is the art of the micro, withdrawal. This means giving yourself permission to step back from a conversation or a dynamic, not permanently, but momentarily, when it begins to feel energetically draining. It may look like saying, "Let me get back to you on that," or simply excusing yourself for a few minutes to regroup. This subtle action teaches your nervous system that it is safe to protect your energy. Over time, this becomes your normal response to stress. Not overexertion, not over-explaining, but retreating into your center. In many cultures, women are taught that nurturing others means sacrificing the self. But true nurturing begins with self-respect. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you should not try. When you honor your limits, you model emotional responsibility to everyone around you. You teach your children, your partner, your colleagues. This is how self-love looks in real time. The most magnetic women are not those who always say yes, who smile through discomfort, or who shrink to avoid conflict. They are those who understand that love without boundaries becomes dependency, that kindness without clarity becomes martyrdom, and that peace without self-protection becomes performance. So the next time you feel the pull to react quickly, to explain yourself, or to give more than you have, pause, breathe, ask yourself, am I honoring myself in this moment? If the answer is no, take a step back, not out of punishment, but out of deep reverence for your inner space. When you begin to build your life around this reverence, everything changes. People treat you differently, not because they've changed, but because you have. You move slower, you speak with intention, you choose your company with discernment, and you begin to experience a kind of love, not just from others, but from within, that feels calm, consistent, and complete. In this stillness and within these boundaries, you rise. Not because the world tells you to, but because your soul no longer accepts anything less. In a time when appearance is often mistaken for value, it's easy to believe that being noticed is the same as being respected. But this is a shallow illusion. True respect, lasting admiration, and deep emotional resonance come not from how loudly we present ourselves, but from the quiet force of our presence. There is a difference between being seen and being felt. A woman who is deeply present, rooted in her body, aware of her energy, and in tune with her surroundings, communicates more in silence than most do with endless words. Presence is not a performance. It's a practice. It doesn't require perfect posture or the right lighting. It requires alignment. When your attention is anchored in the now, not scattered in the past or reaching into the future, you radiate a stillness that draws others in. Most people live in a fragmented state, mentally elsewhere even while physically present. But when a woman is genuinely here, listening, watching, breathing with full awareness, she becomes unforgettable. There's a simple story about a teacher who once asked her students, "What is the most powerful way to make someone feel valued?" The class responded with all the expected answers: compliments, gifts, acts of service. She shook her head. "It's attention," she said. "Undivided, uninterrupted attention. It is the rarest form of generosity in today's world." This insight holds a profound truth. When you are fully present with someone, they feel seen, not for what they do, but for who they are. That kind of connection is rare, and rare is valuable. Presence can be practiced through small microhabits that recalibrate how you engage with the world. Start with eye contact. Not as a technique to gain attention, but as a doorway to deeper awareness. When you look someone in the eyes while listening, not staring, but gently connecting, you are communicating, "I am with you, not just beside you." This disarms defensiveness and invites authenticity. Another practice is mindful stillness in movement. When you walk into a room, enter with awareness. Feel your feet on the floor. Straighten your spine, not out of vanity, but as a symbol of inner dignity. Your body carries messages long before your words ever do. People subconsciously notice posture, rhythm, and the emotional tone behind your gestures. Neuroscience confirms this. The brain processes non-verbal cues much faster than language, so your presence speaks whether you intend it to or not. Consider the story of a woman who worked as a conflict mediator. She wasn't tall, and she didn't have a commanding voice. But when she walked into a room, arguments quieted. Not because she was intimidating, but because her presence was so grounded that it influenced the nervous systems of everyone around her. She had trained herself to remain internally calm, even amidst chaos. And this calm spread like warmth on a cold day. People didn't just listen to her, they felt safe in her presence. And that safety created the space for honesty, clarity, and reconciliation. There is a kind of feminine power that is not about seduction or charm, but about still presence. A woman who knows how to hold space, not just for others, but for herself, has no need to convince anyone of her worth. Her presence becomes her proof. There is a neuroscience principle called limbic resonance, which refers to the way our nervous systems synchronize with those around us. When you're calm, others feel calmer. When you're tense, others feel tension. This means your state influences not only how others feel about you, but how they feel about themselves when they're near you. And most people will return not to where they felt entertained, but to where they felt more whole. Practice sitting in silence with yourself. No distractions, just stillness. You'll notice how uncomfortable it can be at first. The mind will race, the body will want to move. But if you stay, if you breathe, you will tap into something deeper than thought. You'll begin to witness your own energy. And once you are comfortable sitting with yourself, you stop needing others to distract you from yourself. That is when your presence becomes powerful, because it is no longer needy, no longer masked. It is real. Now let's explore the second force that amplifies presence in ways few recognize: personal energy. Energy is the unseen frequency you emit. It's the atmosphere you carry into a room, the weight or lightness you leave behind. And while you may think energy is fixed or spiritual, it is very much trainable. Just as your muscles respond to movement, your energy responds to intentional awareness. We've all met someone who says all the right things, but something feels off. Their smile doesn't reach their eyes. Their kindness feels rehearsed. That's because their energy doesn't match their words. Conversely, we've also met someone who barely speaks, but the moment they enter a room, we feel drawn to them. That's the power of congruent energy. It's not about what you say, It's about the frequency you carry. There is a concept in Eastern thought known as Kiya, the vital life force that flows through all living things. In modern language, we might call it vibe or aura, but the essence is the same. When a woman's energy is scattered, when she's constantly overthinking, people pleasing, or chasing validation, her field becomes fragmented. She exhausts herself without realizing it, and others sense this depletion, even if they can't name it. But when a woman cultivates her energy, protects it, and becomes mindful of where she directs it, her presence begins to command quiet respect. She no longer leaks energy by over-explaining, over-giving, or over-apologizing. She becomes deliberate in where she invests her attention, and that creates mystery. And mystery is not about being secretive. It's about being self-contained. One of the most effective micro-habits for energy mastery is to protect your mornings. The first hour after waking sets the tone for your entire day. Avoid reaching for your phone. Instead, center yourself. Stretch. Breathe. Say something kind to yourself. Light a candle. These small acts are not self-indulgent. They are energetic anchors. You are telling your nervous system, I am safe. I am present. I am the one who decides how my energy flows today. When you begin your day from this place of grounded intention, you are less likely to be thrown off by the opinions, demands, or moods of others. You become less reactive. You observe without absorbing. This is especially important in relationships where emotional exchange is constant. If you enter a conversation already depleted, you will seek validation instead of connection. But if you enter full, rooted in your own energy, you can give without losing yourself. And that is what makes love sustainable. There's a story of a woman who once said, I used to walk into rooms hoping people would like me. Now I walk in wondering if he liked the energy of the room. That shift changed everything. She stopped tolerating shallow conversations. She stopped investing in people who didn't reciprocate. She stopped trying to fix or rescue others. And instead, she began to ask, how do I feel in this space? Does this relationship feed or drain me? Is this dynamic aligned with the woman I'm becoming? This level of self-inquiry protects your energy. It filters your environment, and it leads to a kind of quiet elegance that is not manufactured. It is earned. Another subtle practice is learning to say no without over-explaining. When you say no simply and clearly, you conserve energy. Over-explaining is often a symptom of guilt or the need to be liked. But when you trust your own boundaries, you no longer need to justify them. A clear no is a sign of an integrated woman. And integrated women become magnetic, not because they are perfect, but because they are whole. It is not selfish to protect your energy. It is sacred, because every time you leak energy into what doesn't align, you take energy away from what does. And if you're constantly drained, how can you show up fully in love, creativity, or service? Protecting your energy isn't about isolation. It's about discernment. Be mindful of emotional vampires, those who constantly pull on your empathy without offering accountability. Be mindful of spaces that normalize anxiety and competition. Be mindful of content that fills your mind but empties your soul. Energy is not just spiritual. It's relational, neurological, and practical. And mastering it changes how you move through the world. A woman who values her energy becomes a force. Not aggressive, not loud, but potent. Her presence uplifts. Her absence is felt. Her standards are unspoken. And people who cannot meet her there simply fade away. Not by conflict, but by contrast. So pay attention. Not to how much you're doing, but to how you feel while doing it. Your feelings are messengers. When you start listening to them, really listening, you begin to move differently, more slowly, more intentionally, more wisely, and eventually the world around you adapts, not because you demanded it, but because your energy demanded it, not through force, but through frequency. Calm is often mistaken for weakness in a world that glorifies performance. Yet those who understand energy know the truth. Calm is one of the most refined forms of power. It is not born out of suppression, nor is it a mask for indifference. It is the conscious decision to not allow the outside world to dictate the inner world. A calm woman is not passive, she is centered. Her emotions exist, but they do not rule her. Her mind is alert, but not anxious. And her relationships reflect the quality of that grounded clarity. To develop calmness is to reclaim your ability to choose your response, even when your instincts scream otherwise. In relationships, especially, this quality creates emotional safety. A calm woman is not unpredictable. Her partner does not have to navigate sudden storms of emotion. Instead, he is invited into the depth of her presence, a presence that listens more than it speaks and observes more than it reacts. Consider a woman who is constantly reacting to every message left unread, every slight change in tone, every unmet expectation. Her nervous system is in survival mode, and she interprets silence as rejection, change as danger. Her emotional state is outsourced, dependent on how others treat her. Now, contrast this with a woman who notices the same patterns, but pauses. She acknowledges the tension rising in her chest, the stories forming in her mind, but she does not become them. She breathes, observes, and waits. Maybe she replies later, when her energy is balanced. Maybe she chooses silence, not to punish, but to preserve. This is calmness. It doesn't eliminate emotion. It elevates it through awareness. In neuroscience, this ability is connected to the regulation of the autonomic nervous system. When you are triggered through conflict, fear, or disappointment, your sympathetic system activates, preparing your body to fight, flee, or freeze. However, when you train yourself to pause, to breathe slowly, to name what you feel instead of reacting impulsively, you activate your parasympathetic system. This is the state of restoration, of clarity. A calm woman knows how to transition herself into this state. And because of this, she becomes a stabilizing force in relationships. There's a simple practice known as the still face technique, originally developed to study parent-infant bonding. It revealed how deeply attuned humans are to emotional signals. When a caregiver maintains a soft, calm, and emotionally neutral expression, the infant feels safe. When the expression is erratic or blank, the infant becomes distressed. As adults, we still respond to this emotional language. Your calm expression, even in disagreement, signals safety. And safety creates space for truth. There's a woman who once shared a story about how her relationship shifted when she stopped matching energy. Her partner would come home irritable after work, and she used to mirror his frustration, taking it personally, responding with accusations or withdrawal. But one day, she decided to change her energy instead of reacting to his. She greeted him softly, asked no questions, and quietly made space. Within minutes, he began to soften. He later confessed, "Your calm resets me. It makes me want to come home." This is not about being submissive. It's about being sovereign. She wasn't shrinking. She was choosing peace. Calm doesn't mean you accept poor treatment. It means you don't lower your frequency to match chaos. You address issues, but you do it without losing yourself. To cultivate this form of calm, practice the habit of delayed emotional processing. When something triggers you, commit to not responding immediately. Whether it's a message that hurts, a tone that stings, or an unexpected silence, wait. Let the emotion pass through your body. Write about it. Speak it out loud when alone. Move your body. But do not make decisions or declarations from that state. Emotional clarity rarely arises in the first wave. The first wave is almost always shaped by past pain, not present truth. Another microhabit is grounding. When you feel your emotions rise, bring your awareness to your feet. Feel them on the ground. Let your breath slow down. Say to yourself, I am here. I am safe. I can choose how to respond. This tiny moment of awareness can prevent hours of unnecessary emotional chaos. Over time, it becomes a way of life. Now shift into the deeper terrain of what underlies calmness, self-respect. Without it, calm becomes suppression. With it, calm becomes power. Self-respect is not loud. It is not declared on social media. It's quiet, often invisible to others, but undeniable in your energy. It's the look in your eyes that says, I know who I am. It's the steady hand that doesn't chase or beg. It's the choice to walk away, not to punish, but to preserve peace. But here's the truth: self-respect is not a mood, it's a discipline. You don't wait to feel worthy before acting worthy. You choose it, over and over, especially when it's inconvenient. Especially when it costs you attention, affection, or false security. Imagine a woman who says she values honesty, but allows lies to go unchecked in her relationship. Or a woman who says she prioritizes emotional health, but keeps returning to someone who disrespects her boundaries. These are not judgments. They are opportunities for reflection. Every time you choose comfort over integrity, you erode self-respect. Every time you betray yourself to please another, you teach your subconscious that your needs are negotiable. But every time you say no with grace, every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you walk away from what doesn't align, you build self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of high-value energy. There's a quote, you can't build a relationship with someone else if you're constantly breaking the one with yourself. Let that sink in. Your relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other connection. When you respect your time, others do too. When you speak with clarity, others listen. When you prioritize your peace, others stop bringing chaos to your door. One simple micro-habit that strengthens self-respect is the daily commitment to one non-negotiable. It could be a walk, a journal entry, a moment of silence, a boundary. It doesn't matter how small. What matters is consistency. When you do what you say you'll do for yourself, you signal to your psyche, I am reliable, I honor me. Another is the micro-refusal. This is the habit of gently, but firmly refusing things that dishonor your inner values. When someone speaks to you in a way that feels off, you say, I'd like to continue this when we are both calmer. When a message feels manipulative, you don't respond to defend yourself. You simply don't engage. These refusals may seem small, but their impact is massive. You are reclaiming your space, not through fight, but through presence. There's a story about a woman who was constantly seeking validation from a man who gave her attention only when it was convenient. She would text, wait, feel anxious, then reach out again. One day, after months of this pattern, she stopped. She sat with the discomfort. She wrote herself a letter instead of texting him. She deleted old messages. She reminded herself that chasing someone is not the same as being chosen. That week, she wrote in her journal, this silence is painful, but it's honest. And honesty is how I return to myself. This is what self-respect looks like. Not always comfortable, often lonely, but deeply purifying. You begin to strip away the layers of need, of addiction to attention, of fear-based connection. And what remains is a quiet strength, a calm presence, a woman who doesn't tolerate what wounds her. Not because she's cold, but because she finally sees her worth clearly. When others see this, they react in two ways. Some withdraw. They were never meant to stay. Others rise. They adjust their behavior to match your standard. Either way, you win, because you are no longer bending to be liked. You are standing to be respected. Another micro-habit that reinforces this standing is the daily ritual of beauty or health, done not for others, but for yourself. When you treat your body with care, you signal to your mind that you are worth the effort. You don't need an occasion. You are the occasion. Brush your hair with attention. Drink water like it's a sacred act. Dress in a way that reflects your values, not your insecurities. These small habits remind you I am the first to honor me. Self-respect also shows in how you speak about yourself. Notice your words. Are you self-deprecating to appear humble? Are you downplaying your needs to avoid seeming too much? Replace those habits with new language. I'm still learning, instead of I'm such a mess. That's not aligned for me. Instead of I'm sorry, I can't. Speak with the energy of someone who knows her presence is valuable. There's a final story of a woman who changed the tone of her entire life with one simple decision. She stopped asking, do they like me? And started asking, do I like how I feel around them? That shift moved her from performing to discerning, from pleasing to choosing. And that shift is available to every woman who is ready to move from emotional noise into emotional mastery. Because at the heart of calm is not control, it's clarity. And at the core of self-respect is not distance, it's discernment. When you combine the two, you do not need to chase worthiness. You become it, in the way you speak, in the way you choose, in the way you simply exist without apology. When a woman chooses to live with intention, each microhabit she cultivates becomes a quiet revolution, a way of signaling to the world not just who she is, but what she will no longer tolerate. These are not grand, sweeping transformations. They are subtle shifts that ripple across every area of her life. She no longer needs to raise her voice to be heard or compete for space to be seen. Her presence alone carries the weight of self-respect, discernment, and silent power. High value is not something a woman declares. It is what she consistently demonstrates in how she speaks to herself, in how she shows up when no one is watching, and in how she handles people who test her boundaries. Others may not be able to define it in words, but they feel it. It's in her calm when others are frantic, in her stillness when others seek validation, in her clarity when others are lost in emotional noise. She is not shaped by trends or opinions, but by her devotion to inner alignment. She dresses with care not to impress, but because she honors her own presence. She listens not to react, but to understand. She communicates not to control, but to connect. And she knows that peace is more powerful than persuasion, and self-respect speaks louder than confrontation. There is an ancient quietness in her, a kind of presence that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, and never clings. She knows that anything meant for her will never require her to abandon herself. And that's why people feel drawn to her, even if they don't fully understand why. She radiates value because she no longer seeks it outside of herself. This is the way of the high-value woman, not because she strives to be one, but because she remembers who she truly is.